I hear static, Charlie tapping lines again. Grossy still pressing buttons in Vienna, talking shit from a desk.
Oh, Mr. Dino!
Charlie call in like he know that code. Voice cracked up, couldn't hold that load. Say Tokyo, but the heat ain't there. Talk real greasy from a folding chair. Say Dana line, say he got no facts, but we see melt and we know the tracks. Grossy feed scripts from a lockbox room. Just a big play with a clickbait boom, boom, boom. He say just wait, long jump soon. He gon' test fate. Tokyo Rose got a grandson troll. Call up Dana, try to play that role. Say operation, voice off stage. Stream stay live, he just sound caged. Scripts don't hit that bluff too clean. He don't debate, he repeat the screen. Say just you wait, but the call don't land. Whole thing run by Grossy's hand. Grossy push papers, slide that task. Charlie just read from a handler mask. He claim meltdown never took place, but the water still flash and the rod still trace. He say scam show, then his line cut quick. Trying to frame Dana like a Netflix flick, but the crowd stay locked.
Hello.
Cams don't shake. Truth sit heavy and the call sound fake. Stream tab live, troll line trace. No name filed, burner in place. Long jump moving, playback fake. Call don't shake, feed don't break. Just noise on a burner, no seat at the table.
Oh, Mr. Dino!
Tokyo Rose got a grandson troll. Call up Dana, try to play that role. Say operation,
always
voice
takes
off
me a
stage.
minute, my
Stream stay live, he
apologies.
just
We're
sound
almost
caged.
there.
Scripts don't hit that bluff too clean. He don't debate, he repeat the screen. Say just you wait, but the call don't land. Whole thing run by Grossy's hand.
About radiation
You shut
and
your
nuclear.
pie hole.
He know a lot more than you.
Hold
You're
on.
stupid, man.
There we go. Hey, what are you gonna be when you grow up?
Okay, sit. Oh, you make me sick.
Huh?
Mr. Thunderfoot, you're gonna be finished. You're gonna be finished.
Charlie call loud, voice all nerves. Long jump leak got prepped in curves. Just you wait, but the tone ain't land. He a ghost line tool from the V and a brand. Dana still drop with the feed in frame while Charlie
Might as well let
repeat
us
like a
finish it.
rerun
Only a
game.
few more
Say Mr.
seconds,
Dana, then
actually.
mute come fast. As op ain't real, that ghost don't last. Rose ran psyops, now we on script. Grossy feeding trolls from a fax board trip. Calm down, Charlie out.
Do you like my?
Do you want to tell
Do you
you
like my
about
T-shirt?
friend of Tokyo Bureau?
Do you like
Let me tell you about
that?
friend of Tokyo Bureau.
Joe, you piece
About
of shit.
radiation
You shut
and
your
nuclear.
pie hole.
He know a lot more than you.
That's a hilarious tune. That's by James Lucid, by the way, on YouTube. There, a filmmaker, an artist, a musician, and a good friend of this planet. That's for sure. You can call in, folks, at 709-589-4406. Calm down, Charlie. It was so appropriate. Yeah, that was like I just couldn't connect to YouTube. And my screen is bugging out on me as we talk here. Hopefully that's not showing up on your end. So now they're calling these massive reactors small, mini. This is actually called a mini nuclear reactor. It's so tiny, look at it. We'll get to that coming up. Bear with me. I'm almost there. Here we go. Yeah, that was a tough gig tonight to get up and running. Holy shit. I got the yellow band of death, and so I had to keep doing the security on it and everything else. Excuse me. Gaza is the hungriest place on earth, with all its people at risk of a famine, says UN. Huh. Good thing that ain't Israelis. Can you imagine if that was happening to Jews? That'd be torture, wouldn't it? You'd have to listen to him whine and sniveling. The world's first commercial mini nuclear reactor is ready to power 500,000 homes. And so that's a mini nuclear reactor. That a mini nuclear reactor could power like 10, 15, 20,000 homes. I know we ought to be covering this since the inception, but Because of its size and ability to deliver power safely and steadily, it's been called a nuclear power bank. It's a small modular reactor. Clearly, this fits on the back of a pickup truck. What a stupid industry, eh? It's a massive reactor. 500,000 homes is a massive reactor. It's got nothing to do with mini. China's first commercial small modular nuclear reactor. Modular means you can build it in pieces and ship it to your site. Does this look like you could build it in pieces and ship it to your site and put it together? And the whole industry is just literally retarded. They are smaller, safer, and quicker to build. Yes, I could tell. Look at that. They're tiny. Should be illegal to make them that small. That's got to be hard on the poor workers. They have to hire Filipinos or something with little tiny fingers. This reactor's still going to need 2 gas, oil, and coal plants to run, by the way. They can't run on their own power because they're not economically viable. They're only viable if they rob the taxpayers for their entire legacy and for another 1,000,000 years because of the waste. Construction begins at Ontario nuclear site for North America's first small modular reactors. It's crazy that 2 stories came out in a row. This one is going to be 240 feet tall, probably just as big as the Crazies reactors. I'm assuming that thing is at least 240 feet tall. Canada's reactors are going to be 240 feet tall. That's 50 feet taller than Fukushima reactor. 50 feet taller than Fukushima's reactor. But it's a small modular reactor because somebody said so. It's going to cost $5 million plus. They're going to build 4, $21 billion. South Korea can build a large one they said, for $5 billion. This is absurdness. They can't build a small modular reactor, so they just call a large one a small modular reactor. And they haven't even built it. They haven't even gave it a test run. Normally, in a sane planet, where there's checks and balances, you would build the reactor at one of the national laboratories and run it through its paces to see if it actually works. No, not Canada. Canada's completely captured by the nuclear industry for a very long time. The one thing we do know, clean electricity to power 1.2 million homes. That's a small modular reactor in my book, I'm sure. It's going to create 18,000 jobs for Canadians, they said. Geothermal will provide the same power right away in 1 or 2 years, and it's only going to create maybe 50 jobs. They don't have to spend $100 million a year on maintenance. It sounds stupid, I know. There they are. It's like they're going to build it on Lake Michigan, or Lake Huron rather, which is the largest freshwater lake by area in the entire planet. Because stupid rules our planet now. So that means everybody who drinks the water and uses it for farms ends up getting sick from the radioactive contamination. You can't contain it, right? Skepticism over new EDF, which is the French government power pricing mechanisms. And they show you a picture of a nuclear plant surrounded by farms as far as you can see. Just give me a minute. I gotta try to fix something. Nothing simple in this world. We don't live in a normal world. We don't need a normal world. We need everything nuclear. Everybody should get a nuclear reactor up their bum. Then the nuclear industry might be get along with. What do we got here? Hello, everybody. We got the yellow screen of death again. It just showed up. Should nuclear power plants, fuel pools, perpetual radioactive fallout be declared a biological weapon? Oh, that's why we got the death, the yellow band of death. We're on fiber optics. So what that yellow band means is I haven't got enough data to YouTube, which needs around 6 megabytes. And my bandwidth is a 1,000 gigabytes because it's fiber optics, right? Should nuclear power plants, fuel pools, perpetual radioactive fallout be declared biological weapons? I would imagine at some point every nuclear fuel pool will be declared a biological weapon because it's still splitting atoms. And that's the sickness of this nuclear industry, isn't it? And the reason they're surrounded by farms, as far as you can see typically, is because the fuel pools are splitting atoms and there's a huge amount falls locally. And that's why they have these tall, skinny stacks on these sites. That's to get it to fall off site. And that's why they're surrounded by farms. And the farms, if you've been here at all, you started noticing this phenomenon. I guess that's where we got the yellow screen of death again. Industrial firms in France continues to push back against the country's new nuclear electricity pricing mechanism. It's going to take place on January 1st, 2026. The large power users are reluctant to expose themselves to market prices or lock themselves in long-term stable contracts for the French government's nuclear reactor outputs, which generates 60% of the power consumed in France last year. France is burning as we talk, right? They brought in all these young male invaders from different countries that have no skills and are violent, released from prisons and shipped into France. And they've done the same thing to Ireland and United Kingdom and some other countries, including Canada. And they're not like bringing in people that are going to get a job and bring their family over and their kids and everything and take care of them. They bring in violent criminals who just got out of jail. And there's an agenda going on, clearly, worldwide, that we're covering a catastrophic event, and that's why we stick to this topic, because nuclear is the nemesis of every species. A universal nuclear payment scheme. I don't even remember. Let's keep going here. Iran calls Trump's wish for a deal that lets the United States blow up nuclear sites a fantasy. So Trump was talking about Iran got two options. We can blow it up with the people in it, or we can blow up the laboratories without the people in it. But it has to go. And so Iran is not going to give up its nuclear. It's idiotic to put that foot forward because Iran is quite capable of defending itself. Donald Trump has reportedly outlined a vision for a nuclear deal will let the United States enter Iranian facilities and blow up any infrastructure deemed a threat. Threat to who? Meanwhile, Donald Trump's nuclear industry is making triggers for more bombs. They can have bombs when nobody else can. I don't want anybody to have bombs, don't get me wrong. If Iran doesn't build a bomb or have a bomb, they're going to end up looking like Ukraine. That's why Ukraine looks like it does, is because they didn't have a bomb. And this seems to be a new trend we're seeing on our planet. Mr. Trump has suggested a plan where the U.S. could target Iran's weapons infrastructure through an agreement, destroying facilities without harming people. So that's the compromise. You can blow up a lab, but nobody's going to be in the lab, as opposed to everybody being in the lab and blowing it up, right? And so that's not negotiations. That's strong arm, right? That's bullying. That's the opposite of rational. The 25-year quest to find missed atomic bomb ends. Whoopie-doo. Here's what we know about the iconic. What do you mean iconic? The only people would love the picture are losers and morons. Should nuclear power plants fuel pools, which are perpetually releasing radioactive fallout 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, forever, be declared biological weapons? I think if you don't declare them as biological weapons, you're going to regret it. You're going to have to do it at some point. So this photo was taken. This was used in postcards in Las Vegas. A city built on nuclear tourism. Las Vegas was built on nuclear and dead bodies, right? From the mob. The iconic photograph emerged from a unique moment in American history when the display of nuclear power captured the public's attention. In 1950, it didn't capture the public attention. This was a public relation from the media had lied perpetually the entire time and try to, and still do, of course, sell it as something responsible when it has the worst attributes of any energy source in history. Las Vegas sought to capitalize on the trend and send in photographers in 1957 to shoot a promotional ad for nuclear tourism. They had special packages where you can drive there, you can fly in with these packages and get a hotel room, watch nuclear bombs going off, and then go back home for a set price, right? And the idea was to promote the nuclear industry, particularly the nuclear weapons, because they went nuts. And then all the nuclear waste was dumped in the oceans and rivers and streams and Great Lakes. What they done was just unconscionable. And it's their kids that are in positions of authority in that industry as we talk. They're degenerate inbreeds. It became one of the most requested photographs, shaping Las Vegas' identity, a city of fantasy and spectacle. Yet little was known about the model in the photo, and some guy spent 20 years. Her name was Anna Lee Mahoney. And she died of cancer, of course. Until her death from cancer in 2001. Gee, I wonder how you get cancer in a nuclear wasteland, Las Vegas. Why isn't an atomic nucleus round? The nuclear industry this is all man-made stuff we talk about. They studied man-made emissions better than, infinitely more than anything from the solar system. They're absolutely, they've been using these isotopes on humans in hospitals since radium, since Marie Curie discovered radium, and it's always killed them. It killed everybody. And so they keep changing the isotopes. It never cures the cancer and always kills them. But they're always creating new isotopes. So they keeps using it for 90 years or something. And still never cured the cancer, but it always kills them. And so, we're going to create this other isotope, and maybe that'll work. Instead of coming up with actual solutions, that's what they've been doing. And so I got a problem with that, and you should too. It turns out they're very rarely spherical. They're rarely round. They're always odd-shaped, and then they show you a picture like that. It's 10,000 times smaller. The nucleus is smaller than the atom as a whole. You can put 200 million atoms on the head of a needle, you can't see it. And so each atom is 10,000, or each nucleus is 10,000 times smaller than that atom. And the man-made atom, if you put it in your body, it pulses energy every second, almost at the speed of light when it comes from the nuclear industry. So your body doesn't know what to do. It has to try to repair all the damage every second from that explosion, almost at the speed of light, and then it has to try to encase the physical anthropogenic man-made atom created by the nuclear industry that nothing on the planet has an autoimmune trigger to defend against. Quite the mouthful, isn't it? Like a fly in a cathedral. I think people like this should be thrown in on Fukushima Reactor 3 to see if it's still deadly, right? About 90% of the nuclides are shaped like an American football, like his brain, shaped like a football. 10 outlandish ideas to deal with nuclear waste. There is no such thing as an outlandish idea when it comes to the nuclear industry. The most outlandish idea is usually the one they'll take and use. And it's fact-checked. That makes me feel better. It shouldn't. These leftovers, really, nuclear waste is called leftovers, pose a huge danger to the human health and can destroy the environment. These leftovers, that's a frightening way to talk. Ohio State researchers created a battery that runs on nuclear waste. And you've been putting nuclear waste into people for 90 years to cure them of cancer. It's never cured them. Destroys them, gives them more tumors. And but they call it therapy, so therefore that's considered acceptable because there is not a single checks and balance on the entire planet for this industry. And only the craziest will get to be CEOs. Washington scientists turn radioactive liquid into glass. That's not true. They take the radioactive sludge in the 177 tanks. These are 300,000 gallon tanks, right? But they dumped 1.4 million of those tanks directly into the soil, but they got everybody fixated on 177. It's pretty slick, isn't it? And so what they do is they dehydrate it, and then you get left with like not mud, but like a cake that didn't bake properly piece. And then they're going to encase that with glass, and then that's going to store it, they say, for 1 billion years. It doesn't work that way. If you encase it in titanium, right? If you got a box of titanium, you put the piece in 2 pounds, 2 kilograms, or whatever, in the steel or the titanium box, and you put a lid on it and you weld it. It's still going to break it down in about 30 years. What do you think it's going to do to glass? You really think glass is somehow better? There's nothing they can do with it because we don't have any material on the planet that can actually is not going to be affected by the neutron bombardment. The reason that we're going through this enormous effort is because it's still splitting atoms. It's very incredibly idiotic to even have it on your planet. It shouldn't be on your planet. It should never exist. The storage tanks under Hanford contain 56 million gallons, 212 million liters of chemicals. These are radioactive chemicals, not chemicals. It's radioactive waste. It's sludge left over from the Manhattan Project. But they actually, which is 177 tanks, right? But they actually dumped 1.4 million of the same 300,000 gallon tanks, 1.4 million, directly into the soil. It's 450 billion gallons into the soil, which is equal to a 6-foot wide aquarium of nuclear sludge splitting atoms, 518 feet tall, 6 feet wide, 518 feet tall, wrapped around the entire planet more than once. So they're going to ignore that and only talk about the 177 tanks instead of the 1.4 million tanks they dumped into the soil. And that does show up, though, in conversations or stories once in a while, but only through, it'll never be in context. The glass material is a durable waste form that isolates the radioactivity from the environment for a long time. Well, you can put it in wood. That'll isolate it for a long time, same as glass or titanium or steel or idiotic copper, the stupidest thing you could ever put nuclear waste in, which, by the way, is what the Canadian is planning on doing. Because there's this pulsing of energy from gammas and neutrons and betas and alphas, and it breaks down the integrity of no matter what material. Glass is the least useful, I would imagine, from everything I've covered, and there's not many people out there covered more than I have. Remember, like in university, a professor reads the book, the same book year after year after year, teaches it to the students, right? We cover an absurd amount of stuff for, too long, because this industry shouldn't exist. The only reason I'm saying it that way. NASA studied the idea of launching nuclear waste into space. NASA shouldn't even exist. What a stupid industry that that group is, eh? Studied the launching nuclear waste into space. Well, they've done it lots of times with satellites, where they put nuclear waste in satellites to send. They said to send it out in space, but it blown up in the atmosphere, and everybody ended up with plutonium in it. Every human and every animal ended up with plutonium in it, which is the worst thing that can happen to you. And like we've heard that connotation last time, we should send it to the sun. But you're talking about such a big volume, and if that stuff blows up, and 1 in 100 rockets will blow up, then you're going to contaminate lethally. You're going to set the world on a extinction event trend. And it takes time to play out, but we see it playing out now clearly. Drilling deep holes into the Earth's crust. Right, and there's a couple of companies that started up over the last number of years. There were trolls before they started up their companies. And that's what they want to do. They want to dig a hole, just drop it down in the hole and bury it, where it's going to melt down. The problem with the fuel, if you leave it alone, it's going to melt down. It doesn't need oxygen to burn forever. So when it melts down, a big portion of it has to melt down. When you're putting, each country is planning on putting all of it into one spot. So once one melts down, the rest of it will melt down by proxy. The industry is just, I can't direct you to anybody in the industry that's reasonable, that's sensible, that is responsible. I can't direct you to a single person in any universities, any government agencies, any regulatory agencies, particularly the United Nations, UNSCLEAR and IRPA and the IPRC, the International Atomic Energy Agency. These are the least human, the least trustworthy creatures I've ever seen. Turning nuclear waste into artwork. Yeah, why not? The hell with it. Let's just give everybody a radioactive suppository. Actually, too late. We already done that with radium for decades. The industry is not sadistic. It's just trying to exterminate everything on the planet. That's just who they are. That's just their personalities. There's nothing they can do about it. If there wasn't nuclear, they would look for another technology that could do it, and then they would work busy for the rest of their lives trying to kill everything on the planet. That's just who these people are. Well, they're not really people, are they? Experts looking at discharging toxic waste at subduction zones at one point. And if you try to hang on to a nuclear fuel rod, it'll kill you immediately. Scientists came up with the bizarre idea of using these subduction zones to dump the... No, the only problem was people didn't want to do it, right? Rational people like me and you were like, no, you can't go doing that, and started creating a fuss. Otherwise, they would have went and done it every time. One idiot, James Russell Blair, was even granted a patent by United States, Canada, and New Zealand. He was a maniac. For his subductive waste disposal method. He later tried to sue the United States government, the nuclear industry, for $14 billion after they outlawed using the sea or seabeds to dispose of nuclear waste. He was upset because they made it illegal to poison the entire environment. So he sued the government. And that's your typical nuclear scientist. That's your typical nuclear student. You remember that hang on, I'll come right back to that. Remember that Kaylee, that lunatic? Let me see if I can find her. She's starting to show up regularly now in stories because she's almost... she's got incredible education and she's just pure evil. And this is the standard, though, we see with the students coming out of universities. They take evil to a level that there it is. They take evil to a level that is insane. This is her at MIT last year. She has an incredible, and it's typical. They have these incredible educations, and they prove their contempt for everybody to the nuclear industry by making these
the
videos.
normal level that already exists in the water we eat, sleep, drink, bathe in today.
So she just conflated man-made radiation with stuff that shouldn't exist in the conversation that's so-called natural. Natural radiation, you can't make a nuclear bomb out of. It's good for you. Everybody's acclimated to it through genetic superior selection. She showed up in a story today promoting the same kind of madness. But this is what we see in the nuclear industry. It's happening so much. It's emblematic of the industry's desperation, but freezing waste in ice sheets has unforeseen long-term dangers. They actually done it in some places. And then over the last number of years, it showed up because the glaciers are melting post-Fukushima. The nuclear industry is the reason there is climate change, because gas on and coal emissions is carbon. Carbon makes birds and bees and insects and humans and puppies. But anthropogenic man-made radioactive emissions are pulsing energy at the speed of light every second. They never go away. We've been releasing it directly into the environment for 90 years. And every reactor building produces at least 2 fuel pools with decades of reactor cores that are still splitting atoms. They never stop splitting atoms. So say after 14, 15 months, you're taking a large portion of the current reactor core out, and you're putting it in a pool where it boils off about 120,000 liters a day. But every 14 months, you're going to do that. So every 14 months, you're going to double the emissions from the fuel pool into your community. So imagine after a decade, imagine after 10 or 3 or 4 decades, how much radiation is coming from each of those fuel pools. It's absurd. It's if I'd done it with any other thing, they would have 1,000 documentaries on how evil I was. And we have over 1,000 of these fuel pools worldwide attacking us, attacking every species. Which is one of the reasons I got that poll tonight. Should nuclear power plants' fuel pools, perpetual radioactive fallout, be declared a biological weapon? And what else could you declare them as? You can't declare them as anything but, because that's what a biological... When they get in your body, they're worse than a biological weapon. The effects on all species. And so it'd be very prudent to immediately... The idea was that surrounding the ice, and so we're back to this story, containers would seep, the containers would melt the ice, and then they would sink deeper into the ice, and then the ice would freeze above them, and that would lock them in. But that's your mentality of everybody in administration in the nuclear industry. And anybody that's planning on being in the administration will come out and attack you publicly to show the industry that they should be hired. That's how they show the industry that they should be trusted and hired and given a very high-paying job. And I mean, there is nothing too evil for them to say, because there's no repercussion. There's no law to hold them accountable. The police can't hold them accountable. The only people can hold them accountable is the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, and that's changed every time there's an administration, right? And they always pick exceptionally hideous monsters, like 3 or 4 of them, to man that particular position. Dumping radioactive waste in the South Pole was banned in 1959 Antarctic Treaty. That didn't stop them from poisoning, surrounding it with nuclear waste, though. More recently, scientists have expressed concern the melting ice caused by climate change could expose the buried they always call it toxic, the buried nuclear waste to the surface. Not could, will. It's guaranteed. And we always see them refusing to just say it, just be honest. Elementl signals a broader energy shift for AI-driven data centers. This is absurd again. Google is partnering with Elementl Power to develop 3 nuclear sites, reinforcing a strategy for geothermal is reliable, and nuclear is not carbon free. To call it carbon free is the craziest thing imaginable. When it has 2 dedicated gas, oil, and coal plants. They spend $100 million a year just on maintenance. This includes everything is resource intensive. Every 14 months, they got to bring in an extra 1,000, 1,200 employees. Like, the resources are over the top. They're running on gas, oil, and coal plants dedicated to them, massive ones. It's 100% a house of cards built. Again, the artist's rendition. Like, this is similar to the Canadian small modular reactor, but now we know it's 24-story building. It's not going to look anything like that. And then the Canadian reactor was supposed to look smaller than that one. So here's what the Canadian and the United States small modular reactors, they're 24-story buildings. Right? That's what we're talking about, 24-story buildings. So that's what a Canadian, the size, half of it will be underground. But it's still a 24-story building, right? You're not going to put this on the back of a transport truck and move it somewhere in parts, okay? And none of that is... I think that was just the nutty United Nations subsidies coming out with that narrative. And then the industry, like, they're very... they control their narrative. So the International Atomic Energy Agency, in coordination with the nuclear industry, like the World Nuclear Associations, the lobbying groups, which are spin-offs of UN's military-industrial complexes, United Nations, IAEA, UNSCLEAR, ERPA, the IPRC, for instance, are all United Nations, right? They're all the same people, too, on top of that, in each of those entities. And they all back each other up, which is it's complete control opposition. An artist rendering of the Kuros Power Hermes low-power demonstration reactor. Well, they don't have a demonstration reactor. They haven't built it. China's alleged small modular reactor, which they've been putting on a pedestal for the last 7 or 8 months in particular, turns out to be a massive, massive reactors. Had nothing to do with a small modular reactor. I was actually, because like they were so secretive, I was actually expecting a small modular reactor. I was like, oh shit, they actually done it. But no, look. Spun out of a U.S. National Laboratory and University Research. And you remember that airhead I showed you, that female airhead I showed you earlier? They'll probably put her in charge if she keeps up the evil she's doing. To commercialize advanced reactor technology robust at an affordable cost. You can't do anything affordable in the nuclear industry. It was quite a few years now, but they tried to buy me off. I was insulted that they would even think for a second. They were Calm Down Charlie used to call into the show, and sometimes he would offer me trips to Japan, and when I would reject him, he would just lose his mind on the show, call me every name, and people used to get upset with me and tell me to block them, Dana. I just wanted the people to see what I deal with all day, every day, even when I'm not streaming. These people are always at me. Like, I'm doing this because I hate the nuclear industry. Because they deserve to be hated. I'm doing it because this is how I get my kicks. That's how I get my jollies is kicking the shit out of the nuclear industry. It's fun for me. It's not a hard job or something. Yeah, it's hard. There's a lot of work to it, my goodness, and it's worth doing. They're exterminating the planet and all the species, don't get me wrong. But it's not hard to be motivated to come out here and bash this industry. I'm always a little shocked there's not thousands of people like me out there just curb stomping the nuclear industry each day. It shocks me. It'll happen. That day is not that far away, I would imagine, because that's the way it works in the real world. U.S. Congress threatens to cut support for nuclear power. There is dissenting voices, I notice. I mean, Trump wants, not Trump, but he was forced to come out by the nuclear industry because they're very powerful, right? And he was forced to come out and even say, he knew better, and say, well, we're going to build 300 gigawatts, which is, a typical large nuclear plant is about 8.86 of a gigawatt, 8.84 of a gigawatt, 0.8 of a gigawatt. It's never won a whole gigawatt nuclear. Well, I think there might have been one or two out there. But typically, so you're talking about 350, 380 large nuclear power plants. But in 25 years, it's absurd to suggest. It's absurd, right? They just don't have the precious metals. They don't have the resources. They don't have enough gas, oil, and coal plants to run them. They don't have enough farmland to build them in. There's a lot of reasons that can't happen. All the stuff I'm telling you is the reality. It's an educational program, and it's easy to do because the industry's so easy, right? They make it easy for me. We've never covered a story where the nuclear industry was reasonable, or somebody was like, well, actually, it kind of made sense. He seemed like a pretty good guy. We've never said that. How come? I mean, what they done for me for a decade on the research expeditions, holy smokes. I never experienced anything like that before. I don't think many people have. You had 1,000 public relation firms attacking you. You're taking pictures. You evil bastard, Dana. Proposed legislation could undermine nuclear. There's no nuclear renaissance. We've already gave them all the money, all the authority, all the equipment. They give them everything they ever wanted. They still can't do it. 90% of the money gets stolen through administration. So this is basically just a big money grab. Donald Trump signed, the United States president signed 4 executive orders aimed at delivering the often promised nuclear renaissance for the United States. Maria Koshnik, how the hell can a woman like that not be in jail for a genocide that she created? The CEO of the Nuclear Energy Institute, which is a lobbying group, it's just a lobbying group, said earlier this month, we're facing some headwinds. There is no resistance to the nuclear industry, right? Like Beyond Nuclear, Greenpeace, these are a controlled opposition. They're the same old song and dance the industry's always used to trick and manipulate and deceive everybody. Marie Kosnick. You're not facing any headwinds. You have all the money. You have all the authority. You've got all the media and all the universities completely at your disposal 24 hours a day. You got all the monetary you could ever hope for. They just throw money at you. You got no products. You got all these small modular reactor companies out there with no products, raking in $1 billion a year in stocks, and people got no way of earning interest on a product that doesn't exist, but it's pump and dump these stocks every 3 or 4 or 5 weeks hardcore. There's no accountability. They got no worries about ever being held for crimes they commit or for fraud or for embezzlement or for anything else. only a handful of technologies are available for avoiding zero carbon. Like, what are you talking about, zero carbon? Which was a paper by BP Oil that got weaponized by UN, right? And now everybody has to deal with it. Baseload electricity, nuclear is one of them. It's not the only one of them. It's one of them. It's the worst one of them. It's the most expensive one of them. It's the most resource intensive one of them. It poisons the planet for billions of years. Its emissions, it's the only perpetual machine on the planet is a fuel rod, is splitting atoms forever. That's the worst words you can ever hear if you're a human. Unless you're evil, from the nuclear industry, then that means death and diseases for every species. Then I guess that makes you happy. That's what blows their skirts up. The budget bill passed by the House does pose some threats to the U.S. nuclear industry in the short to medium term. Yeah, but Trump just gave them a get-out-of-the-oh-shit card for the Senate to fight for more pro-nuclear measures in the legislation. Because they know that even though Trump just gave them everything they ever asked for, and way beyond their expectations, they still can't make it happen. And so they want more. They got to have everything on the planet. They got to consume everything on the planet. Like, where are you going to get all the gas, oil, and coal plants to run each of these nuclear power plants? You're going to have to build, if you're going to build 300 large nuclear plants, you got to build 600 large gas, oil, and coal plants just to run them. It's stupid. Well, think about each reactor, and so people don't understand how the energy is necessary, why I'm saying the things I'm saying. So each reactor needs 1 million gallons a minute. I know most people can't wrap their mind around that. That's 4,500 tons a minute. I know most people can't wrap their mind around that statement, the enormity of that statement. So think of 4,500 one-ton pickup trucks with no mufflers going past your door every 60 seconds. Do you get it yet? That's how much energy does it take to move 4,500 one-ton pickup trucks with 1,000 liters in the back of it, 1 ton of water, 2,200 pounds in the back of each of the one-ton pickup trucks to maximum possible load? How much gas and diesel do you need for those trucks to pull that off every minute, each day or each year or each decade? So it needs a gas, oil, and coal plants, 2 of them dedicated to each site. There's so many facets to it. Like a nuclear, many people, if you read the nuclear industry's version, they like to brag about a lot of things because the people there, a lot of them don't understand the bigger picture. I say, well, nuclear power plants are pretty big. They're like little cities. They're like big cities. They need a lot of electricity. Here we go. Uprated new scale small modular reactor design gets you U.S. approval. Yeah, rubber stamped. Next. It's not like they're going to build it, but the investors, the mom and pop investors that are being hoodwinked into buying the stocks don't know that. Here, I'll get the picture taken. Oh, look, I'm on a so special. They haven't got a reactor. This is the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, actually, is it? And they're on a stock market. They don't even have a reactor. They got a license. It's not a full license. It's not the complete license. It's not 2 million pieces of paper. But that's the new regulations for the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission. They always rubber stamp everything anyway. But normally they would hire 300 or 400 or 500 people to go through 2 million pieces of paper for the application. Now they don't have to do that because Donald Trump just signed a waiver. So there's no checks and balances. It's like, just feed them anything you want. Tell them you give it to them when you get around to it. Okay. Use the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. Well, that's what Trump says. We got to rubber stamp everything. So they rubber stamped them. They're come on, buy our stocks. I got to sell mine. The world's biggest nuclear power station. That's 8 times bigger than the Earth's smallest country. Oh, that must be that must be a mini, small, massive modular reactor. So, like, when you hear small modular reactor, you got to put the word massive in front of it to be accurate. So it's a massive small modular reactor. That's considered acceptable. La 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 la. La 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 la. The largest nuclear plant on Earth isn't in the United States, it's in Japan. It's been closed down since there's an earthquake in Japan. Now they want to reopen it. It's unprecedented. It's been closed down for 14 years. And they want to reopen it. But there's a problem with that. In 2024, January 1st, there was a massive earthquake in the Noto Peninsula, Ishikawa Prefecture, which is right alongside the Niigata Prefecture where the Kashiwaki or whatever it is nuclear power plant is located. Yeah, Niigata Prefecture on the coastal sea of Japan. The problem with it was right alongside of it, there were 6,600 homes that were destroyed by an earthquake in the next prefecture, the Ishikawa Prefecture, the Noto Peninsula, because a fault line that was 3,500 years old or so had ruptured, that had been dormant for 3,500 years. And it caused liquefaction right alongside of the Kaoriwa nuclear power plant in the Niigata, prefecture. So that ground is unstable, but also the fault line runs right past it. And it could very well run underneath it, right? And there are studies looking to see if there was a so-called dormant. Now that earthquake that happened January 1st, 2024 in the Noto Peninsula was a huge earthquake. They had like a 100-mile tsunami. The earth rose up for about a mile of the ocean, rose up 13 feet. So there were 6 harbors that dried up permanently. And the coastline rose up 13, 14 feet for over 100 miles. Including the Shika nuclear power plant, which we still have no documentation on. And there was the community itself, Shika community, registered a 7 on the Shindu scale, which is 7, which is the Japanese scale. So it was a 7 out of a 7 on the Shindu scale, which is a 10 out of a 10 on the international scale, the Richter scale. The site spans 4.2 square kilometers. It's so tiny. 8 times larger than the Vatican City. The Japanese don't believe Fukushima is safe. A stigma is still attached to the region. They'd be smart. I've never seen this picture before. These people are clearly morons. Why would you ever, and under any circumstances, go to a nuclear meltdown community, let alone the actual site? How could you possibly be that complacent that is an option? How does that actually work? Yeah, I know. Yeah, we're late getting going tonight. I don't even have my phone with me. Just hang on a second, I'll go grab it. Just wait one moment. I got it just right there by the door. Knocking on heaven's door. Yep. I've done that a couple times, but I was struggling tonight to get the show up and running. Soil samples from Fukushima. They're going to bring it to the Prime Minister's office and put it in the flower bed, and then that means everything's safe. You don't need to do that. I'll show you why. Excuse Excuse me. There we go. This is 2012. They're growing food right alongside the 1-ton bags of radioactive fallout that was picked up. So he's not even wearing any protective gear. Not that there is anything to protect you in that environment, by the way. But he's not wearing his idiotic paper suit. And so that means it's for harvest. That's the only reason you're going to see him harvesting without any protection on. And that was in the media. That was a picture from the Japanese media before they stopped you from being able to download the Japanese media. Now you just got to blow it up and take a screen capture of it. But there's a reason they done that, by the way. Dismantling contract for nuclear aircraft carrier USS Enterprise awarded. These things are incredibly radioactive. $536 million to take apart the nuclear ship, the big, massive disease factory. How many suicide bombers does it take to equal one of those jet fighters, I wonder? A couple of million? 2 million? 3 million? They certainly trick people, eh? The deck doesn't really look like that, or does it? Please tell me the deck doesn't look like that in real life. No, it doesn't. That had me worried for a second there. Some sick and twisted and demented person actually put that in there. The Beaky was present at some of the most important moments in U.S. Navy history. U.S. Navy, something missing there. What is that word, I wonder? No, U.S. Navy history. The blockade of Cuba, which is still going on today. Aerial combat and bombardment missions from Vietnam War. That wasn't a war, that was a slaughter, and you contaminated the entire planet with Agent Orange, and you still got 3 million children each year with permanent disabilities disfigured from the catastrophic congenital malformation. The evacuations of the U.S. Embassy during the fall of Saigon, which is still hell. And the bombing of Al-Qaeda. Millions dead, millions missing, millions in refugee camps, millions unaccounted for, millions of orphans to get 10,000 Taliban. I'm sorry, 10,000 Al-Qaeda, then 10,000 Taliban. And 10,000 Mujahideen, 10,000 Hamas, 10,000 Boko Haram in Africa. And so each time, that's what they went to war over. They killed millions, millions dead, millions missing, millions unaccounted for, millions of orphans, millions of refugees. To get 10,000 this, 10,000 that. That's the signature. It's the same thing for Hamas in Palestine, 10,000 Hamas. And then they justified 5.1 million refugees in concentration camps surrounded by barbed wires with Israeli soldiers with German shepherds. There are cases, but that's the whole history. That's what is fed to the population. Oh, there's 10,000 Taliban. There's 10,000 Mujahideen when Russia was there. There's 10,000 ISIS. There's 10,000 Boko Haram. 10,000 this, 10,000 that, and then they go in, millions dead, millions missing. I mean, like in Afghanistan, you displaced 28 million people, everybody. But you destroyed every building there. You shot depleted uranium. Just the A-10's Warthog. The A-10 Warthog only shoots dirty bombs, depleted uranium, low-level radioactive material. And during the Kuwaiti, Saddam Hussein Kuwaiti blowout, they slaughtered 300,000 of Saddam's Ba'ath Party soldiers. These were hardcore, apparently. On the highway, what they call the highway, I can't remember, there was a name for it. But they hit them with the A-10 Warthogs. They were coming out of Kuwait in Mercedes-Benz and BMWs, and they had looted all the jewelry stores and banks, and they looted all the art museums and everything else. So all this national treasure, all this incredible monetary was coming out, And they smashed it all to pieces with DOLRAM, depleted uranium level dirty bombs. Each one of those 12-inch machines they're shooting at the A-10 Warthog. They shoot 1.5 tons a minute of dirty bombs a minute. And so the total number was around 700 tons is what they used. And they buried everybody and all the equipment, cars that were blown up, and because they shot all this depleted uranium through them, right there on the spot. And a Japanese physicist at a Hamburg conference in Germany had done the mathematics on it. It was equal to 44,000 Nagasaki bombs worth of radioactive fallout. Just at one time, right? But the significance of that is this stuff showed up immediately. Within 1 year was found in heavy fallout in all the glaciers worldwide. So that was 1999 or something. Have I been at it just that long? That's so sad. I forget sometimes. French smart Hive sheds a light on the Fukushima nuclear impact on bees. Well, the big problem was he couldn't find any bees, so he brought bees in there. That's the one thing they don't tell you in the study. They tell you he brought the bees, and then the question, why would you bring bees? Because as we know, there was no bees. Radioactive pollen was the proof of that, right? To investigate how radioactivity might affect the cognitive abilities of these insects, of these incredible pollinators that every species is dependent upon. They're collaborating with Japan. That's not words you want to hear. They're not words of encouragement. They call it residue. I mean, they picked up 30 million one-ton bags in just 3% of the land. It's not residue, folks. The numbers in Tokyo per kilogram, if you took a kilogram of the same stuff, of same soil, and put it on a desk in front of somebody in the nuclear regulatory agencies, they would run away immediately and call the police. And the police wouldn't probably try to arrest you. They would shoot at you first because you have what's considered a dirty bomb. So a kilogram of soil in Tokyo is the equivalent, is meets the expectations of a dirty bomb pre-Fukushima. And so they only looked at cesium. How are you going to find a spot with only cesium-137? The sites were selected based on the soil contamination levels with cesium-137. How does that actually work? How do you only find cesium-137 after a nuclear meltdown? How is that even conceivable? I would assume the curium isotopes, which is the biggest byproduct of the radiated fuel rods, is going to drown that particular strong single. It's a very strong single. Right? It pulses energy 600 feet every second. Don't get me wrong, it's nasty. And there's a lot of it. But the curium isotopes need lead shielding 20 times thicker than plutonium do. So you assume the single is going to get drowned out. It's going to be there, but your Geiger counters can only register. They're calibrated with actual isotopes or pieces of, a concentration of, say, cesium. That's how they calibrate the Geiger counter to find whatever isotope is. You'll have a concentration of that isotope, and so only certain companies can get their hands on it, typically, or universities and stuff like that, laboratories. So you get the concentrations of it, and then you set the Geiger counter for that signal. That's how it actually works. And so the Geiger counter you're buying, I watched a video of this kid today. I don't know, she's 24 or something, and she was in the Japan nuclear Kuma or something like that, Fukushima, or alongside nuclear meltdowns, in a nuclear wasteland, and she was wearing farmer's pants, and she had this little tiny pen. It was like a pen, and it was a Geiger counter in the shape of a pen. It was the stupidest thing I ever seen. and at best it could read a little amount of gamma. And then they were using that as justification for going inside the building and picking stuff up and then just dropping it. And you would see the big plumes of radioactive dust rise up in the air because everything is covered in this. And you just have to wonder, like, this is why the industry gets away what it's getting away with, because people are just completely incapable. I mean, they grew up on SpongeBob, and then they graduated to The Simpsons. And then they graduated from, if they ever graduate, they also watch the Hulk and Spider-Man. So all of these industries are meant to just muddle, mash people's common sense, their cognitive performance, so to speak. And they brought the bees in. There currently is no proof of a causal link involving radioactive contamination. See the nuclear... They abandoned it because it's like a banana, Dana. Since the area is now uninhabitable, this decline in cognition cannot be attributed to the presence of pesticides. But whoever done the study, they brought in their own bees. I'm assuming because there's no bees there. From what we know about it. And the International Atomic Energy Agency / the worst humans conceivable teaches Fukushima students the next class of monsters, environmental remediation. I just really couldn't wrap my mind around that one when I seen it. But even though we know this is going on, particularly at the Fukushima Medical University, where International Atomic Energy Agency employees were given temporary professorship to give them street creds in front of the students, right? To come in and properly... These students have bought into the propaganda. That's why they're there. That's why they're in the class. And once they graduate, their job is to cut your loved ones' throats. Delivered the first set of university lectures on radiation safety to students in Fukushima Prefecture. The International Atomic Energy Agency's criteria is based on natural stuff like bananas and potatoes. They're not based on man-made. So the criteria is based on stuff that has nothing to do with a nuclear reactor or meltdowns. That's why it's always safe to move people back into the nuclear wasteland, because the criteria are fraudulent, right? It's 100% fraud. And if this is your first time visiting this show, you're pretty certain that even right now, despite the fact that I provide you with a relentless amount of documentation for most of my assertions, you're pretty certain at this stage that I can't possibly be right, that the industry couldn't be that corrupt. And I get you, man. I feel you, okay? I hear you, folks. But it's an educational program, so I can't teach you what the problem is by not telling you what the problem is. And I can't teach anything if I can't see the screen. That'll do it for another 10 minutes till my eyes go, fix that. Guess what? One more try here. Or actually, I got the final polisher. I got a brand new one there. Never been abused. The problem is now that I got to raise my head up and look into all the lights that are staring at me, and it's... Oh, that worked. There we go. I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be perfect, but it's going to be way better than what it just was. Yeah, that could work. To revitalizing the nuclear wasteland. It's hard to wrap your mind around the enormity of this whole equation, so don't feel bad. How could this get any worse? Growing food right alongside of 1-ton bags of radiation. Well, there you are, right there. Look. That's how it's going to get worse. being evil just seems to be the consensus, doesn't it, with the nuclear industry? The lecture program designed to equip students with sound technical knowledge that will inspire and enable them to lead the future of the Fukushima prefecture, continuing the safe recovery of the environment. How do you recover from radioactive fallout? Because, like, the pre-Fukushima, if you found a radioactive fragment, the U.S. Navy, military rather, criteria, Dr. Doug Rourke criteria, he was tasked from the Pentagon, and if they find radioactive material, they're supposed to put up international signs within a 900-foot radius around that piece of radioactive fallout. And then they were supposed to erect a tall fence. I think there was like 16 feet, something ridiculous number, for a 900-foot circumference around that source, with international signs posted all around in different languages. And that was just a no-go zone. Now they put it in your food. Continuing the safe recovery of the environment. Continuing the safe recovery. First off, the International Atomic Energy Agency, Clark. Remember Clark? What's her name from the UN there recently? This was 2023. August 2023. Or this was the month before that. International Atomic Energy Agency's public trust is key to the projects using radioactive soil. IAEA. This was what's her name, Clark. She said the International Atomic Energy Agency is not a regulator and is not in a position to judge or approve Japan's soil recycling project. But then the next sentence says that the task is to make sure Japan's plan is in line with their safety standards. But yet they're not a regulator and they're not in a position to judge or approve Japan. So this is some schizophrenic type stuff we're talking about. So they're not a regulatory agency. They don't have the authority. And then in combination with natural radioactive decay, well, the majority of the radioactive fallout is the curium isotopes, which has a 250,000-year half-life. And so this, like the majority of the harmful, even if it's got a long half-life, because it's man-made, it retains its energy. That's the problem, right? So the industry likes to conflate natural stuff, like uranium-238 with a billions of years half-life, 4.5 billion year half-life. There's 10 half-lives, so you can multiply that by 10. And then say that, well, it doesn't have any harm because it has a long half-life, so it's not very harmful compared to radium, for instance, or something, right? This was the old narrative they were used to use. And then they conflated it with all the stuff from nuclear fuel pools or nuclear meltdowns, nuclear reactors. Like this stuff from a chain reaction is 2 billion times more toxic than industrial poison. It's unbelievably toxic. It's absurd. And it's pulsing energy almost at the speed of light every second. Has significantly reduced radiation in the area. Much of the evacuated areas are habitable again. Significantly is the word to put in there. It's not significant. The Geiger counters they're using is only looking for gamma. They're not looking for the real stuff. Gamma's brutal, don't get me wrong. Iodine's a gamma, and cesium's a gamma. Today, children are playing in school playgrounds because they didn't. For 2 years, parents kept them indoors because that was, rather than evacuate them, which is what they were supposed to do. We got like so many horror stories of this. Hikers are using the forest. Children are playing in playgrounds. Therefore, everything is good because people are stupid and complacent. Is it? Is that your logic? That's your logic. And that's a new logic. I haven't heard that logic before. Well, I've heard variations of this one, right? That's the first time I heard that particular one. Well, children are in the playgrounds. The area is habitable again. According to us, it's significantly reduced the radiation. The hikers are using the forest. There's modern houses, Dana. Oh my God, modern houses. Well, clearly everything is perfect in a nuclear wasteland. What kind of sick and twisted, demented industry would do that? Let me guess. Oh, nuclear. Only nuclear could be that sadistic. The lecture is based on the International Atomic Energy Agency safety standards. Let me see. No breaks for the weary. Oh, that didn't work. One more time. Might have got it. Probably get the phone book thrown at me. Do I put in IAEA? Oh my God. Just hang on here. There's still hope for me. I'm pretty good at spotting stuff, right? Oh well, so much for that theory. Did that search? Yeah. Oh, I can't find it right off the top of my head. I can't remember where it would be, unfortunately. I got their standards, right? And their standards are based on bananas and potato chips. They're insane, eh? I'm just going to click on this one folder and see if I get lucky, Let's keep going. There's other places I can look, but let's keep going. Their standards are based on natural radiation, not man-made. This is insanity. This is insane. And because I didn't show you the information tonight, which is unusual, I'm not going to blame you for calling me a lawyer, okay? Because it just doesn't seem reasonable, does it? We hope the younger generation will learn from the collective knowledge and experience of the degenerate International Atomic Energy Agency, which is comes from UN, which is a subsidy of UN. They're not separate. They're not a regulatory agency. They don't have the authority to hold anybody accountable. They don't have any sovereignty over any country. They're a corporation. They're like McDonald's. They're put on the pedestal because they're UN, which has taken over your planet. They have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of subsidies, like IAEA, like tourism, like UNICEF, and they slowly assimilated 195 countries. Are using they're like a massive think tank that somehow or another is now taking over our planet. And they've always existed. Before Hiroshima and Nagasaki, UN was known as the League of Nations, and so they've been at it for a very long time. And they're also known as the New World Order. A lot of people like, oh, I heard that's conspiracy theory. There ain't, boy. I hear you. Just hang on a second, though. Let me play a little video of George W. talking about UN calling it the New World Order. And I'm going to adjust the volume if it screws up here. I'm going to adjust it down first. I think it's supposed to be full blast, but...
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
New World Order. Well, looky there. Sure sounded like you said New World Order over and over to me, George. Yup. Keep going here. Let's get through this. International Atomic Energy Agency employed us to the next step for reconstruction and revitalization. This is the International Atomic. We're still at the International Atomic Energy Agency. Is teaching university students at Fukushima City, I guess, to hang around and clean up the radiation for a couple thousand generations. The program, a pilot exercise, took place at the end of 2024. It was requested by the government of Japan under a cooperation agreement with the International Atomic Energy that started in 2012. Started in 2012. Hang on. Where would I put that to? I wonder. Stay with me here. Because I have a folder here with legacy headlines in it. A lot of folders. There's too many in this folder. If it's not there, then it has to be. And so the folder is full of the legacy headlines. Because we do these legacy headline shows where I dig Time Machine. I just seen it. That's what it's under. Time Machine. Dana. What's wrong with you, dog? Oh, there it is. Time Machine. And let me see if I can get lucky here. Fukushima University Freedom of Information Installation, UN doses and red bone marrow in Japan, first year. Time Machine, Fukushima, early cover-up 3, early cover-up 4, ELP system, Freedom of Information. I don't know. Let me try this one. No. They're crazy, though. All of these stories are just so crazy. Let's keep going. If I start reading that, I'll never get anything done tonight. Government's answer to protecting the Fukushima children from radioactive fallout was wear long-sleeve shirts while at school. These are the same students at university they want to now stay there. Nuclear industry propaganda about low-level radiation's rubbish, says a physician who taught at Harvard Med School. It's all about internal emitters, which is built trillions of times worse than external, and external is brutal. Japan's safety standards on radiation levels for children are unconscionable. All of Japan's standards are based on International Atomic Energy Agency, which is based on natural, not man-made. The whole thing just, it's impossible to comprehend how it's still going on. Nursery schools, Geiger counters nearly off to scale. Topsoil had been replaced. This is where you don't go and change the topsoil and move the kids back into the nuclear wasteland, because the topsoil is evidence it's a nuclear wasteland, so everything is contaminated. Radiation has no problem filling up your buildings. 27,000 atoms a kilogram cesium in a kindergarten on the West Coast 2,000 kilometers from the meltdowns. Radioactive sludge in the kindergartens in Niigata. That's where that nuclear plant story we were talking about earlier, the biggest plant Japan has. It's on the east side of Japan, over by the Ishikawa Prefecture, Noto Peninsula. 2,000 kilometers from the meltdown, 200 kilometers from the meltdown. These are absurd numbers, by the way. So instead of moving them out, they'll just go in and use a vacuum cleaner, spread it around, send in a broken Geiger counter. It's hard to imagine something more frightening than 5-year-olds marching off to irradiated school playgrounds. There was 90,000 children were given dosimeters around their necks. So you can't read it. You got to send it away to the university in the United States or Great Britain or France to study illegal lab rats. Parts of school playgrounds declared off limit after 0.25 of a microsievert. 200 kilometers southeast. Children and staff got to wear hats and gargle regularly. So this is it's like how do you address this kind of evil? How do you pretend this is not going on? How do you pretend this doesn't matter? How do you pretend that these got any human attributes whatsoever? Experts find 45 microsieverts an hour near the school, 90 times higher than Chernobyl. But 0.25, 1/400th of that one was off limits at a playground. But these are not really high numbers compared to numbers we've seen either. University radiation test finds 56 microsieverts an hour at an elementary school drain. That's 20 times higher than the official number. There's so much evil, and this industry just creates because there's so much money gets thrown around. This is why 90% of the money is stolen through administration, because you have to pay off so many people, see? And, you know, in order to be to run these cover stories, you've got to be able to take buckets of cash so you can sleep at night, I guess. Parts of the school playground declared off limits with just 1/4 of a microsievert. Researchers are too frightened to get closer than 100 kilometers to the meltdown. So I'm quite shocked by the amount. Yeah, it's only the homeless and the destitute that goes in there, and the victims of society, and they're ran by cruel people. They're like the gangs are hired. School playground 70 times maximum has radiation 70 times the maximum allowed. Equals 69 millisieverts a year. 69,000 microsieverts, 70,000 microsieverts a year. These are absurd, unconscionable numbers. A report 75% of the Fukushima's 300,000 children are going to school so contaminated they would be in radiation control areas and nuclear power plants. Although they would abandon those sites if you use the pre-Fukushima number. Read more about the cooperation between the Fukushima Prefecture and the International Atomic Energy Agency on radiation safety since the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear accident at the IAEA's website. That's the craziest thing imaginable. Hi, everybody. Yeah, Devil's Minions. There you go, call it. Perfect. I watched that video you sent me. I commented on it, actually. I noticed my comment didn't show up. I commented, I got a tendency to take screen captures, and when I go back, my comment is missing. I should do a whole show on that stuff alone. Why shares of nano nuclear energy stocks sank this week? Well, nano doesn't have an application into the regulatory agency. Not that that matters anymore, because now they can just give them a blank piece of paper, and the Nuclear Regulatory Commission has to give them a license. Oh, you've been at this a long time, haven't you? Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, here's a license. If you lose it, you can come back, we'll give you another one. It's a $50 fee. It's a really interesting industry when it comes to cruelty, right? Yeah, the A-10 Warthog. Well, here's a really interesting story about the A-10 Warthogs. They were having they had 35.7 million dirty bombs / munitions, depleted uranium. These are huge. Let me go back to the other picture. Look how big these bullets are. I think they're 12 inches or something, 14-inch bullets. And they're not tipped, they're not coated, they're pure uranium. And so the government was looking for tenders to get rid of 35.7 million dirty bombs because they had better dirty bombs they wanted to use. Like 35.7 million is a lot. And they're like, well, so where do you get rid of that? Well, we don't know because it was a private company. And every one of them meets the qualifications of a dirty bomb. And most of these are made at McAllister, Oklahoma, McAllister munition site. It has over 1,000 buildings, I think. The community itself is around 1,900 people. Almost every single person that's old enough to work works at they have 4 massive dirty bomb factories there where they only make dirty bomb munitions. There's quite a variety of these dirty bomb munitions that they're using too. Hundreds of thousands. It was actually, turns out to be millions. And we covered this story extensively in 2020. And it was 190 species of insect-eating birds on the migratory route. 190. There was 190 different species collected all over the place. This was the consensus. They had no fat reserves and no muscle mass. Almost if they had been flying until they couldn't fly anymore. They starved to death. This was 190. It was 192 species, wasn't it? They are extremely emaciated. So if you got a couple of species, that's still absurd. If you got one species, it's insane, right? If you got a couple of species, it's madness. When you got 192 species that can't find insects and starve to death, in summertime, on their migratory route, you got a real problem that is catastrophic. It's a catastrophic problem. And Japan is behind it. And so science outweighs irrational reasoning. He said Fukushima, if you dumped all of Fukushima, which is equal, he said, to, in the tanks, was equal to 2.2 grams of tritium. Not tritium-3H, like, which is actually what comes from a reactor, but natural tritium. And he said nothing got out of the reactors. Now, this is a professor of nuclear and quantum engineering in South Korea at the most prestigious institution. And he says, if you discharge everything from Fukushima's nuclear 36 reactors that melted down, if you discharge everything, and of course they did, it was equal to 3 grams of sugar going into the ocean. But this is a professor of nuclear and quantum engineering at CAS, which is South Korea's government most prestigious institution for nuclear. So when you got all these people coming out to cut your throat, what kind of planet is it you live in? So it was equal to 3 grams of sugar, yet in the first year there was 865,000 extra cancers, just in that first year. Not everybody was diagnosed, not everybody got health care. Remember, I launched research expeditions for 6 years. From Vancouver, British Columbia to Alaska. 4 to 5 months a year on the ocean by myself. I was attacked the entire time I was gone by the public relation firms because there was no one there to defend me. Well, I think there were some people who were trying their best, and they refused to acknowledge that the radiation from Japan, even though we had endless documentation, we didn't do this without the documentation. Right? We went out to see for ourselves. if there was any damage to the coast. And the species to your left, now I've done this for 6 years. The reason I've done it for all the extra years is because the species to your left are gone. So I had to go back to see if the species to your left recovered. And because I used to dive that coastline, I was very familiar with it. That's what it looked like in 2011. By 2013, all the species were gone. That was due to the radioactive fallout. And what was more incredible was that they still don't acknowledge it per se, but the only official acknowledgement we got was that there was an unprecedented mutation of cancer that spread from one species to another like viruses. And that's why all the species to your left are gone, is because cancer killed all the clams. Like there's little necks and manillas and razorback, there's abalone scallops, there's oysters, there's gooey ducks, there's shellfish like mussels, there's snails and periwinkles, mollusks. There's 480 species of sea worms, and a lot of them would be in the tidal zones, very visible. There was around 80 plus species of starfish. Each species came in multiple vibrant colors. And the same thing with the sea anemones. There's around close to 80 species, and that's one of them there. And they get quite big. And you'll see them, you'll start to notice them in the background there. They're very popular. They all disappeared. These beaches are empty. And you're talking about 27,000 islands up there. And so I went through all the most important. The best way to approach it was hit all the pinch points. So the islands on the outside, the ocean had to squeeze through it. So that's where you would expect to find the most oxygen. And I used to dive those areas. So they were very difficult because the fast tides there, right? Species to your left are now exterminated. That's because of Fukushima event, the Fukushima effect. This is not an opinion, right? This is a fact. Through the School of Hard Knocks, the perpetual School of Hard Knocks, and the documentation, we have incontestable amount of documentation, an unassailable amount of documentation. And so that's why I'm so persistent, because that's the moral and ethical thing to do. And the industry's just lucky I'm not healthy, because I would give them a what for. Maybe that's the plan all along, I guess. It's my whole life seemed like it was destined to do the things I've done, particularly for when it comes to nuclear. I seem to have the perfect background for all of it. And so when Fukushima happened, I was well versed. I've been at it for over a decade at that stage. And I never had any illusions. In fact, I produced videos on the first day, the next day, and forever after. So this was a radioactive fallout study. This was a increase, spiked. Let me go back to that. This was the French government, the IRS and French government itself. In Canada, United States, was 1 million to 10 million times pre-Fukushima levels in the airborne per cubic meter of air. And so you have cesium-137, each atom pulses energy 600 feet every second. So that's incredible, though, that you can put 200 million atoms on the head of a needle, you can't see it. But each one of them are pulsing energy that's lethal to everything with replicating cells. It destroys the cells, the chromosomes, the DNA. Even from 2 houses away, it's on the other side of the house, it'll beam through it all and hurt my cells and chromosomes and DNA. Well, imagine what it's doing to all the species, what it did to all the species. Imagine what this planet would look like without nuclear. And so the radioactive fallout, this was the study. This was documented. This was the French government. And this is based, when it stops, on 31 days. And we're approaching, in the model, or the study, at 20 days right there. That's 20 days of radioactive fallout of cesium-137. with 1 million to 10 million times pre-Fukushima cesium-137 levels per cubic meter of air covering the entire planet. So there's no way that doesn't affect every species. There is no way. And of course, the building blew up. They ejected the reactor. Of course, the tsunami was coming. Had all this debris on the coastline. So the radioactive fallout, of course, was landing on that stuff. And then close to the site, they had assemblies, which are 100 fuel rods. Each fuel rod is around 18 pounds and 12 feet long, had landed from those detonations. But there was also huge amounts landing in the ocean right in the local area. So all these reactors melting down was equal to 3 grams of sugar. If you listen to the academics and scientists, like this guy here, or there's 800. You listen to me. There's 865,000 cancers, extra cancers. Not everybody got health care. Not everybody was diagnosed. It's not just cancer. There's heart problems, liver problems, lung problems, respiratory, pituitary, thyroid, adrenaline. And remember, thyroid and mutated stem cells, which is going to happen to every species and everybody, because we're not talking about. They didn't pick up 30 million one-ton bags because it's like a banana. The food wasn't banned by 55 countries for a decade because it's like walking in sunshine. And the radioactive fallout was documented over and over and over, covering the planet. The academics, the journalists to my right, were not on top of the building to your left, despite the fact that you've seen all these pictures and videos. They were not even in Japan. There was no building to be on top of, and a journalist who knows better is the very last person to go to a nuclear meltdown. The documentation of the radioactive fallout covering the entire planet is not up for debate. The stuff I'm showing you are factual stuff. Inhaling the radioactive particles increases radiation exposure by the factor of 1 trillion. So comparisons with X-rays and CAT scans are literally and physically meaningless. It's infinitely worse on a scale most people, unfortunately, are not able to comprehend. So this study was really important because it used to be 1 in a million. Now it's 358,000 out of 1 million. And the study, like I said, it used to be 1 in a million with thyroid tumors for children who are developing. And now 13,646 out of 38,200. And that was 1 in every 3 children. It's just because the government said, well, they're only small tumors. They're tumors, and they're on the thyroid. They're the same size as the thyroid because they're 2 centimeters, which is the size of a kid's thyroid. And that means they're also going to be brutal. They can't be the gamma, which is what cesium-137 or iodine, or this is cesium-137. You can't just have that without its partner that is a ratio of 100 to 1 of strontium-90, which is a bone seeker. So they're producing radioactive hormones for their entire developing life and the rest of their life, and which is true for all the species, of course. And they're producing radioactive stem cells for the developing, which is a couple of decades for a kid. These are absurd numbers, and these are a fraction of the real numbers. And it's not just, thyroid issues on its own. There's absurd amount of congenital diseases that will manifest from something, that kind of exposures. You're talking about tumors the same size as their thyroid. So pretending that there's no adverse side effects from that, which makes the hormones for all of your functions, and particularly for development. This is why we see a crash of all the species worldwide, and we're seeing all these emaciated whales, emaciated birds, etc., etc. Like the research expeditions, we didn't do them for something to do. We done them because we had an overwhelming amount of documentation. and the industry wasn't being forthcoming. We went out to investigate it, and to our absolute inconceivable, unimaginable horror, the species were missing. West Coast, this was a study out of Ottawa, Canada. 220 million atoms per liter of iodine-129 in the rain after Fukushima, with a 15 million year half-life. It can't just be detected in the aquifers, it has to be a saturation, because how many of us drink a liter of water every day? Elevated levels continued for months. In other words, that plume is the same as the plutonium or Neptunium plume. The Neptunium plume was based on TEPCO's numbers of 239, which decays to plutonium-239 in 2.5 days, 2.5 days or something like that. So the same plume had all these different isotopes I just showed you. And like the iodine-131, which was 20 million atoms in the Canadian study, like 20 million particles, even worse. It's 20 million pulses of energy almost at the speed of light every second. Per liter. It's going to be 10 times more iodine-132, 30 times more 133, and as I showed you, the 31 times more iodine-129 from a separate independent study. And so the 132 to 133 iodines are 9 times more effective than the incredibly effective iodine-131 at ionizing and radiating the thyroid glands of all the species, and humans, and your friends and families and loved ones, and yourself, your puppies, and everything you care about. All your hopes and dreams for your children and their children have been compromised by this industry now. And they're very good at covering their tracks, right? They captured all your regulatory agencies, your universities, and your medias a long time ago. And so now the entire system, key positions in all your major medias, is infested with this plague of traitors and dangerous criminals. That's what the nuclear industry is, a dangerous criminal organization. A coward, unbelievable coward organization. It's the one thing we always, and we know that because we've never seen anybody in the nuclear industry that the world can relate to. Right? There's nobody in the nuclear industry that you can point out and say, well, pretty good guy or girl. It simply doesn't exist. That's the one, and you never see that in any other industry. That's just one of the strangest things on top of it, isn't it? And they can be taken down with the racketeering laws because they tell all lies all the time. And so the racketeering law is made to take them down. Well, we have a friend of ours on this show's been around for many years, and he has spectrometers and real proper equipment, calibrated properly. And for years and years and years, he would call into the shows with new numbers of bags of chips or bags of seaweed or just regular food. And he would look for neptunium, and he would look for iodines, I think it was cesium. And because he was able to calibrate it right himself, and the numbers were just horrific. Tens of thousands many times, right? Just stuff from your local supermarket. So the International Atomic Energy Agency, as far as I can tell, their job is to destroy the future of every species. And they're working very hard at that, and we need more people to get educated so that the world can try to have some kind of a future, because this industry has 80 years on you, plus it's really the whole story is just unbelievable. If you go back through my videos, I recommend you watch. If you really want to appreciate how harmful the industry is, you got to go back to my die-off videos. I got a playlist of die-off videos. They're very informative videos. The idea of those videos is to make sure that you can extrapolate on your own. You don't need the industry. You don't need the industry propaganda. You need facts. And then you can easily, on your own, you don't need to be that educated to appreciate this stuff. It's fine if you are, but you don't need to be that, you don't need to be educated to... All right, so that's it for us. We got we got Michelle A donated 65, and Lorraine, which is Albert Mitchell's wife. I'm going to show you a picture of Albert here in a second. And his wife donated $365 yesterday. Caught me off guard. I didn't know what to say to that. That caught me off guard. Bless your hearts. And Albert had died recently. And he was here for so long. He was so prolific. Never ever, not going to pull that. You were never going to pull anything over on him, man. It was really something. So shout out to his loved ones. Bless your hearts. What can I say? I see James Lucett's got another song out. We're going to go that route tonight. But just in case you haven't been here before. That was a song, No Bugs on the Glass. That was a song that James had put out in memory of Albert. So that's, and it's a really cool song. James got a lot of cool songs. I just downloaded another 40 of his to try to get up to speed again yesterday. And I want to listen to him when I download them, right? So it was a good way to kill a few hours. So this is his newest song. And he's on the same theme, thank goodness. Which is a very difficult thing to do. And so nobody's ever done this before. He's got over 300 songs, anti-nuclear songs, which is more than the entire planet combined, on his website, James Lucett. Oh, he's getting close to a big number. Ooh, I like that. That's pretty impressive. All right, here we go. I'm going to adjust the volume. I always turn the volume down, click on the video to make sure I'm in high quality. So it always seems to lately to be in high quality. It's like they're mocking me. We'll make Dana go through the routine again. And sorry, I was late getting the show. I think it took like 17 minutes to get the stream to work tonight. That's really unusual for us. And so I'm coming up short on my 2-hour show. My apologies. But hopefully a song smooths it over and makes everything right. Have a great night. Hugs for everybody. Take care.
This river used to carry weight. Names moved with it. The kings would climb through Thor. We stood in hip-deep water, waited for the splash. Now it runs fast, but carries no sound worth knowing. The fish are breaking down offshore, not in traps, not on gravel, but out in warm water that doesn't turn. They swim towards something that doesn't remember them. They don't circle back. They vanish outside the chart. Beyond the timing, beyond the catch. No escapement, no return. No signal, no concern, no bearing, no reply, just quotas left to justify. They mailed the projection, called it strong, said the pattern holds because it once did. But the track bent years ago, after 11, after we stopped listening to the water. The scanner still blinked, so no one stood down. I walked the copper mouth and found loops of nylon, caught on fence post wood, nothing straining, nothing left to watch. The first fish didn't rise, but the planes came just the same. Chefs prepped empty plates, and no one asked why. No escaping, no return. Print the figure, let it burn. No pressure, no line cast, only headlines from the past. You can't tell what won't appear. You can't trace what's never near. They knew, they knew, they knew. But the kings didn't make it, and the rivers won't explain.
Rolled out of making the sky gone pale, rain on the shield like a soft bent nail. Engine knocked like a bottle on courses, paint on the blacktop and tires roll. Used to count the guts like ticker tape June. Now the windshield reads like a dead cartoon. No fleck, no grit, no tick or drone, just a flickering line in a copper tone. No bugs on the glass, no dance, no sound, no wings like sparks when the sun goes down. Where the dusk once sparked with the firefly rise, now it's guardrails and glass with no trace of flight. Across the savannah, wide and slow, river teeth jagged where it eddies slow. Flowers lean from gravel and shade, but the sky held flat like it never prayed. And maybe it's runoff, maybe it's law, maybe it's fallout nobody saw. Maybe that drift from the muck smelt sway took the color and carried it away. Where swarms once danced in the amber light, now it's guardrails and glass with no trace of flight. I run these lanes through half-left towns, past silos bent, the earth gone brown. No bugs on the glass and none to send, just tires on top.